You're listening to the Sketchnote Army podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rohde, the author of the Sketchnote Handbook and the Sketchnote Workbook. And this is the podcast where I chat with sketchnoters and visual thinkers and try to understand what makes them tick. Hey, are you looking for the ideal sketchbook for your sketchnoting practice? The Sketchnote Idea Book is the sketchbook designed for sketchnoters. Equipped with no bleed, no show-through paper, you can take almost any marker or pen you can throw at it. Get 10% off with code ARMY at airship.store. Hey everyone, it's Mike Rohde, and I'm here with my friend Julia Knyupa. Did I say that right, Julia?
Yeah, more or less right.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Everyone, even in Ukraine, struggle with pronunciation of it, so it's fine.
Yeah. You mentioned that it's even an unusual name in Ukrainian, so maybe you can give it a little tidbit in that in your origin story. But before we get to that, let's first say, Julia, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, hello everyone. Hello, Mike. I'm very happy to be here with you today. So my name is Julia Knyupa. I'm 32. I'm Ukrainian, and last year I felt like I became even more Ukrainian. And I speak to you from the United Kingdom, where I temporarily based, and we will see where life will bring me next. But yeah, originally I'm from Ukraine. And I'm a visual practitioner, sketchnoter, graphic facilitator, whatever you call it. I help to translate ideas into visual language.
So now do you, an interesting question would be, I know that you use digital tools. Do you also use analog tools like large boards and markers and such? What does your practice look like when you do that work?
Yeah, actually, I need really to come back in time to talk about this, because mostly it happened in Ukraine and before COVID, and of course before the war. So I worked as a graphic recorder on events. Mostly they were conferences and sometimes strategic sessions in organizations, little and big, no matter. So mostly I worked being a most attentive listener in the room and trying to keep all the ideas put on the paper or like foam board. This is another type of paper I use. And yeah, this was since 2017. I started my journey in my native town, Cherkasy, and then moved to the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. And yeah, I spent wonderful few years doing this to different conferences, and I never put any efforts to promoting myself. So I still don't have a proper website. And yeah, it was always word of mouth, sharing information in my contacts. Yeah, this is in short.
Interesting. Well, I've always believed that word of mouth is always the best kind of advertisement, even better than having to send someone to a website. But of course, websites do provide good information and are valuable as well if you want to branch out. So it sounds like you started in the analog space in Ukraine, and now that you're in the UK, are you still doing analog practice? Do you, like many practitioners, see a shift towards digital for a variety of reasons? Is that true for you as well?
So last year brought me one chance to do analog graphic recording. It was in Moldova in October. 2 days of educational forum. Mostly I do now digital sketchnoting and graphic recording, as I still mostly work with clients from Ukraine and sometimes from other countries. But yeah, mostly it's very, very convenient for all of us and cheaper for organizers of events. Yeah, of course, it kills the magic of being present in the room with other people. But if they all also present digitally, so yeah, it has no sense.
And then the last question I have around this is, have you experienced the case where you're doing your work on the iPad and it is being projected on a screen to the side. Is that something you've experienced yourself?
Yeah, I tried it with a few organizers, but we found out that it not focuses people, but distracts them. So now I offer organizers both options, but after explanation, most of them come to idea of having it afterwards, sending participants via email or somehow else. Because yeah, you want to see a person who is talking to you when it's digital, because it's so many distractions, and yeah, it's better to be focused on people, not on drawings. Yeah, but in analog world, I would say the opposite.
And I wonder too if it's with the analog world, because you're in the front and the scale is smaller for someone, say, in the back, right? They see someone's doing something, maybe they catch a tidbit here and there. But if you're far enough in the back, you can't really read anything, and you're not tempted to, right? So you know it's happening, but your focus and attention is on the speaker. Whereas with digital, a lot of times you might have a pretty large screen, and then if you're like me, I'm zooming in to do work, right? And they're probably seeing the zoom in and the zoom out, and so there's all this, it can be very distracting in that regard, where you can actually sort of see a little more, right? It almost draws you towards that in a way that analog maybe wouldn't. I'm just asking these questions because as this transition is happening and I encounter graphic recorders, I'm curious to see their experiences, because everyone seems to have a little bit different one. And it's really great to hear your perspective on that. So let's shift into, I want to hear your origin story. Like, how did you become the Julia that we know, right? That we see your work and you're doing this work, right? You didn't just, come out of kindergarten and suddenly you were a graphic facilitator, right? You had to build up and probably experience a lot of things. Tell us your story from when you were a little girl. Like, what are some of the key moments that sort of directed you to the place where you are?
Yeah, it's a very nice question, bringing me back in my memories. So yeah, you said about kindergarten. I never was in the kindergarten, so I spent my childhood with my granny. It was very calm and nice, and she was very, very nice and creative person. And I remember she spent a lot of time with me playing, showing me how to find a way in the forest, drawing as well, as her dream was to become a painter, like an artist. And unfortunately, she didn't have this chance in her life. So I feel when I'm drawing now that I'm kinda a little bit helping her to fulfill her dream. Yeah, and yeah, I had a pretty basic childhood, very common for post-Soviet countries, nothing really special, and it was pretty boring by the time I became a student. So my first degree is in publishing and editing. As when I was a kid, I liked to read books so much, and my dream was to create books and to help people to get really interesting and important information in a nice way. So yeah, and I liked to write things, so I was really happy to play with wording, with editing. Of course, when it comes to English, I'm not so good at explanations, but yeah, in my native languages, I'm much better. Believe me, just believe me. And yeah, also, when I became a student, I found out that there is not much happening in my little hometown. So I started to look for opportunities to grow and to travel as well. As my family didn't have a lot of money, so I never left my hometown till the time I was like 17, 18. And yeah, I started to apply for different trainings, projects, conferences, and that's how I discovered that a lot of youth is participating in something like non-formal civic education. And I was really, really excited about this. So that's how I decided, like deeply in my heart, that I want to become a facilitator, a trainer, and to not to be only a participant of this, but also to guide other people. So by the time I finished the uni, I already was a facilitator in youth programs. I'm really, really grateful for this education to Theodor Heuss' colleague. This is a German program. And yeah, also a nice and interesting part of the story is that I was a journalist, TV presenter, and in newspaper when I was a student. It was a very funny experience for me. And also my granny was very proud that she can turn on TV and see me on the screen. This was something exciting about this. Yeah, and it also taught me that people really like when information is set up nicely, and that time is money, because on TV you suddenly realize that 1 minute is very expensive. So you start to put words in short, which is also a very useful skill to what I do now. And yeah, so 7 years of facilitation of youth projects gave me a lot of nice opportunities to learn about people, diversity, social projects. It gave me a chance to travel a little bit around the world, not like the world around Eastern Europe, let's say. Yeah, but it was a very great experience when I started to think that it's something, the world is something much more interesting than my little hometown.
This reminds me a little bit of an interview we had last season with Natalia Telkowska, who grew up in Poland, in post-Soviet Poland. Really similar sort of experience where she was just really hungry to see the world and to get out. Probably a little bit of a similar personality. So we'll make sure and put a link in the show notes. So if you want to connect the dots between Julia and Natalia, you can listen to both of those interviews. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah, cool. And yeah, this brought me to the moment of my life when I was practicing, like doing seminars with young people. And I saw that my colleagues, especially from Germany, are using like wonderful skills drawing while explaining something. And I was really excited. I never saw anything like this. It was like totally new world for me. But I thought that it's absolutely impossible to learn how to do this, as I never draw before like I was 25. So it was just kind of a dream, but I never even tried because I didn't believe that it's possible for me. But in 2016, it was my birthday, and I was very lonely that day. So I decided to scroll Facebook, and I saw that there is a training in Kyiv, in the capital of my city, on visual storytelling. So it takes 3 hours to get to Kyiv from my city. So I bought myself a ticket and went to this training, and I was so excited. It was the best birthday present I could give to myself. Yeah, and I tried that. Yeah, basically I can do this, and I can use it on trainings, and I started to put it in practice. And at the end of the year, I created my first big visual recording, and participants were excited because in Ukraine that time there was only one person who did this like professionally, and yeah, no one was really acquainted with this kind of, I would say, social art. So yeah, that was amazing, and it gave me an inspiration and gave me confidence that I'm able to do this. So yeah, I decided from the first day that it's a very difficult thing to do. It's not like hobby. So I need to do this for money. So I set up a tiny, tiny price for it. But for me, just to know that I'm doing this to grow and to be a professional, not just to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it very seriously, but I didn't get any support from my ex-partner. He said he saw my picture, like first picture, and he said, "Oh, such a shame. I don't think that anyone will pay you for this."
Wow.
And that made me so angry.
Yeah.
And to be honest, anger is a power which really can bring you very far. So I decided to prove
I'm wrong.
that he's wrong. Yeah.
Good.
So
Good
I
for you.
started to create visual notes. Yeah. So now I do visual notes digitally, and if needed offline, I do explainer videos, animated stories, and I also teach sketchnoting people in Ukrainian language. And for a few years, I think few hundreds of people learned it with me. And I always recommend them your books, Mike.
Wow, that's great. And my book is in Ukrainian, by the way. I think you know this, right?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know how well
and
I don't know how well it's selling. I haven't gotten a report on it, but anyway.
I'm sure I was a great promoter of your book, Mike.
Thank you.
So half of books in Ukrainian are sold because of me.
Right, I like it.
Joking.
You may not be wrong, actually. Well, we'd have to see. But and along this story, I don't know where this fits in, but we met each other in Portugal when we went to the International Sketchnote Camp. That's when I remember first meeting you and chatting with you really briefly, because a lot of people were talking and stuff, but it was really fun. And I thought that sort of brought full circle for me, knowing that the book had been translated into Ukrainian, and I have copies here. And that, honestly, that I really, I'm pretty aware of the world, but Ukraine was sort of a blind spot for me. I just never thought of it separately from, Russia, simply because when I grew up, they were kind of the same thing, right? Like, that's probably my own blind spot. So I was really excited when I learned that there was there's really like a separate language. And then as the more I learned, like, actually this culture is really old. It's a really old culture. And it's this whole different experience. So that was kind of my first awareness. Then, of course, then I met Yuri Malashenko, who I learned is Ukrainian as well. And then suddenly, like, all these Ukrainians started popping up in my experience, like you. And I think there's some others that I've met. And so it was kind of a fun awakening for me. Like, wow, there's this whole country. I didn't even know that I was not aware of it. And now it is. And there's these really cool people. And my book is in this language. Like, it sort of was a fun way to be introduced to a country in a really positive way. So anyway, that's our somewhere in this story we met each other. I think that was 2018 in Portugal, where we met. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, this was my first time ever I met a visual community.
Really?
Because Ukraine is really, really far from what is happening in Central and Western Europe. Yeah, and I felt like I'm really the first person who came from so far to Sketchnote camp. Yeah, and I was excited. And I remember it was very expensive for me. So this was my first time I asked the community for support. I said, I can volunteer, I can do something there. So please just give me a chance to come. I will be really, really excited to see all of you, because on the time I only could follow people on Instagram, and it was unbelievable to see all of them offline. Yeah, that was great. And when I saw you, I even didn't have words. I was so scared to approach you, and I was so happy when you approached me. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's funny. I remember you being very quiet, and then we were chatting after. I think it was after a session. I don't know which session. Maybe it was Michael Clayton's session potentially, or something. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, but I remember we had a good discussion. But there's so many people in those camps. Like, you're sort of lucky if you get maybe 30 minutes with somebody, unless you intentionally spend time together. So yeah, it was really
Yeah,
great to
that's
meet you
true.
there. Hmm. Well,
Yeah,
that's
and
really interesting. Interesting. Go ahead.
yeah, coming back to what you said before about Ukraine and Ukrainian language, I also had a feeling, and in my childhood, it was a very common narrative that, Ukraine is a part of brotherhood, of big brotherhood,
Hmm.
and also my family has some roots, or like not roots, but history connected with Russia.
Hmm.
And my granny and my mom were born in Siberia, which is
Oh, wow.
very far, and
Yes.
it's a very cold place. Yeah, but life circumstances brought them to Ukraine, so I was born there. And but I always knew a lot of facts about Russia, Russian culture. We spoke Russian in our family, and
Mm.
even my school studies were in Russian.
Hmm.
So yeah, I grew up on a lot of very propagandist narratives,
Mm.
let's
Hmm.
say. So yeah, it's a very common story, unfortunately, for a lot of citizens of my country. But the good thing, which is happening now, we are finally becoming very, very independent,
Hmm.
and the freedom of thinking, the freedom of expressing your culture, and like, yeah, I would say that being Ukrainian is not about your origin, but about what you feel yourself, about your soul, about your values, and how you identify yourself. So even it came out that I don't have any Russian origin, I'm Jewish, which is another funny story.
Hmm.
Um, I feel so much Ukrainian these days. And yeah, I feel like I'm so much with my country, and it is in my heart every day. And it made me even more Ukrainian these
Mm.
days.
Mm. I can imagine. I can't even imagine what that would be like. It's not even in my ability to imagine what it would be like. So I'm so glad that you made it safely. Now, so I guess it's somewhere in this origin story. I'd love for you to tell like sort of what happened when you were there and how you got to the UK and all that stuff. It's really important for us to hear.
Yeah, so on February 24th, 2022, like a lot of people in my country, I woke up from explosions and sirens in my city.
Hmm.
And the first thing I did, I thought this is a siren of ambulance because I was sleepy and I didn't realize what is going on.
Hmm.
And I thought that all the explosions are also happened in my night dream.
Hmm.
I didn't take it serious, even I was very worried before. So I was anxious like few months before the war happened. I kind of
Hmm.
had a feeling that something gonna happen.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did, I opened the chat with my friends, and I saw a message. Oh my God, girls, the war has started. So I remember that I had a very, very clear thinking, and I managed to do it very quickly. I mean, I realized that I cannot stay there
Hmm.
because in short, I have some mental disorder, which is like anxiety, and
Hmm.
I couldn't stay there because I knew that unfortunately I couldn't manage
Yeah. It's too
to be
much.
productive, and yeah, so I decided to move from Ukraine the same day.
Hmm. Wow.
And yeah, it was a long journey, as I live in the very center of Ukraine. By the way, I think that a lot of listeners even don't realize how big is our country. It's
It
the
is.
biggest
Yeah.
country in Europe. It's as I don't remember if it's bigger than France or France is bigger, but we are kind of the
Pretty
same
close.
size. It's a
Yeah.
huge country.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it took me one day to get to the border, and I spent 2 days on the border. So it
Hmm.
was 36 hours in the car um, with my friends. My friend helped me to escape. She was driving, and yeah, I spent 1 month in Poland. And it is an amazing country. Thank you all Polish people who are listening to this now. You are really great, and your support of Ukraine is priceless, and what you did to help our country is amazing. And yeah, not to underestimate the help of other countries, just we could really feel that this is a real friend now, to us. And later, when the United Kingdom started a governmental program which allowed Ukrainians to come, because early it was very, very difficult to get visa to the UK for us, and it's really an amazing chance to start your life somewhere in a safe place with all the support provided from this country. So they offered local people to host Ukrainians. So it is an amazing thing, and all last year was about feeling how world is supporting me. And yeah, a wonderful family in the UK offered to host me. So I'm still there. I'm still here. And yeah, I'm very, very grateful to this amazing family who has 8 children in total.
Wow.
And they call me the 9th kid. And I really can feel it. I can tell this. Yeah. And all other people who I met here also very supportive and amazing. And I even met here an amazing partner, like the best person I ever met in the whole life. And Andy, I know you're listening and watching this. Yeah, and yeah, this is an amazing journey. Even it sounds horrible because of all these difficult circumstances. A lot of, like, millions of people had to go through. Some of us really suddenly could feel that our dreams came true. A lot of us wanted to travel, and we got this. A lot of us wanted to try something new. We have all this, but unfortunately not in the way we usually plan to have this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took me like half of a year to feel where I am, what is going on in general, to find out myself standing steadily on the ground. And yeah, I started to look for chances to continue what I was doing, because I remember that it's such an amazing thing when you do what you love. It supports you. I don't want to share it as a long story, but what I was doing in Ukraine, like visual facilitation, etc., it helped me to overcome depression. Of course, combined with the help of a specialist, but it is an amazing thing. If you can do what you love, it really helps you to be focused on your goals and your dreams. So yeah, and that's how I found out that, oh, my old iPad is not working anymore like it used to. Yeah, I don't know how to say this in English. So I cleaned it from the dust and I found out, oh my gosh, it works only like 30 minutes,
wow.
even being plugged in. I cannot provide quality services to my clients anymore. And unfortunately, yeah, it was not so popular last year in Ukraine to have visual facilitation, as not so many conferences happened. Yeah, so I had to start looking for new clients, and yeah, it was a very stressful moment. However, one day I decided, oh my gosh, why I'm struggling so hard trying to like earn really little money if I can ask people to help me, because I remembered that if you ask, you have a chance to get it. If you don't ask, you will never get this. So I decided I will try. I didn't believe that it will be fast. I didn't believe that a lot of people would love to support an unknown person, really stranger. Yeah. As I was really, really, um, I didn't, I would say I wasn't a part of English speaking visual community for a long time. Yeah. I was very focused on Ukraine and people I worked with. It was really needed that time, so I never invested a lot of effort and time to be in touch with English-speaking visual practitioners. However, it was an exciting moment when I realized that, oh, I can message some people I know, and that's how I messaged you, and you were so kind to share my request. I created a fundraising campaign on GoFundMe, and yeah, I just asked people if they will be so kind to support a person who has to start a new life from the scratch. And yeah, it was a magical period of 2 weeks when I was like sitting and realizing that a known person from Malaysia sent me $5, a person I don't know, and I really was sitting and sending mental love and kindness and gratitude to people I never saw before for the support and help. And yeah, in 2 weeks we got the amount I needed, and I bought myself an iPad and I was able to create again. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And it made me think how much community matters and how we can really support each other. So in my goal list is one day to pay it back or pay it forward. However, today I need to be focused on helping my country, and I try to do as much I can to work for Ukraine and to donate to support my people.
Well, that was a great story. I remember when you reached out, and I thought, well, this is exactly what our community is supposed to be here for. If we can't take care of someone like this, then what are we doing, right? Why are we even here? So when I posted it and encouraged some friends, I just felt like, okay, come on, community, like you gotta show up here because this is what it's about, and everybody did. I think I haven't looked at the campaign, but I think we exceeded whatever you had a sort of a minimum requirement. I think we exceeded it by the end, which was a really good feeling, and a lot of people contributed. Right, there was a variety of people, quite a list, so that was really encouraging to me to see that.
Yeah, if you're listening now, these wonderful people, I'm sending you my best wishes and gratitude for supporting me. Thank you very much again.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was really fun to see that happen and know that we were making an impact because we could all see what was happening. And I think the other thing too was, I did some donations toward Ukraine for food and other stuff, but you feel like, especially in the US, maybe not so much in Europe, I guess, you sort of feel like it's so distant, right? And then the problem of the news cycle means, in in a week, like you forget about it because it's not on the front page. And, you know, the fact that I knew Ukrainians, it was more on my mind pretty often. But you feel a little bit like, how can I have an impact? Like, you can donate, but it still feels like so distant. So having a person who started her life over and needs this help to do the things that we all do, that felt like, wow, I can actually apply something to a person who's doing the work that we do, and she's part of our community, and I've met her, and that was a really great feeling to have that direct impact. Often the donations you don't see, like the people getting fed or the whatever you're donating to is sort of distant. So this was great to see it directly go to you and to help you move forward. So as much as it helped you, I think it also helped us, right? So it's in a community, it's really a win-win situation where you win because you can move forward, and we win because we feel like we're making a difference in your life. So that's a really great way to be.
Yeah, this
I think.
is amazing. Yeah, and since that time, using this equipment, I already finished more than 20 different projects for Ukraine. Yeah, a few animations, a lot of visual notes. I was surprised, but by the end of the 2022, a lot of conferences happened, and most of them are now devoted to the topic, how can we support each other? How can we develop our country even in these circumstances? How can we rebuild our country? So that made me think about what should I do when I come back to Ukraine? What will be my next step to support my country? So I decided, while I'm here in England, I have a great plan to make a master degree in illustration. It's a very strange choice for a visual practitioner to choose illustration, because it's kind of what we are moving from, because it's very, very the idea of illustration is very different from what we are doing. It's about ideas, not art, but I found out a very nice program which helps to design your learning path. And I showed them what I'm doing, and they said, okay, we're going to support you in learning whatever you need. So yeah, now I'm applying for university, and this is a dream. I never told anyone except of my few friends about this. And today I'm sharing with everyone about this. Yeah, I hope that when I come back to Ukraine, I will be able to illustrate something really important, like something about social issues, like strategic sessions, how to rebuild the country, etc., etc. So I want to really come back and being well prepared to this, and have all the skills, and to show how much we can do when we work together and think visually.
That's really great. That's such a great wrap up to that story. And it's not the wrap up, right? Because you still have it when you return. That will be the next phase of the story. So it's great to hear that story, and to hear that you're investing in yourself, because I think investing in yourself will eventually lead to investing in your country. That's a really great way to think about it long term, I think.
Yeah, I think every visual practitioner going to metaphor is kind of a prism which accepts a light and helps to spread the light.
Yeah.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, and if you can be a really sharp prism, you can do a lot of change in the world. So I hope to be a nice prism for Ukraine.
Great. I love that imagery. This episode of the Sketchnote Army podcast is brought to you by Concepts, a perfect tool for sketchnoting, available on iOS, Windows, and Android. Concepts' infinite canvas lets you sketchnote in a defined area while still enjoying infinite space around it to write a quick note, scribble an idea, or keep pre-drawn visual elements handy for when you need them most. The infinite canvas lets you stretch out and work without worrying if you'll run out of space. And when combined with powerful vector drawing that offers high-resolution output and complete brush and stroke control, you have a tool that's perfect for sketchnoting. Search Concepts in your favorite app store to give it a try. Well, it's hard to shift away. Just want to keep on enjoying hearing about this all the work that you're doing. But I think it's really important that we continue with tools. So at this point, talk a little bit about what are your favorite tools? We'll start with analog tools, which I know maybe you're not using as much, but maybe they're still part of your practice. And then, of course, digital tools. What are your favorite software and other things that help you do the work you do?
Yeah, of course. So talking about analog tools, I'm not original. I use what most of visual practitioners in the world use. I use quality markers like Neuland because they are available in Europe, and foam board because I guess it's more thick and it stay longer than paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that some companies I worked with still have this boards in their offices.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to prolong the effect of session, which is visualized. Also, sometimes I use just usual paper, like usual A4, like
printer
white paper
yeah.
and pilot pen. Yeah, so nothing really original, and I always compare it to like cooking our favorite Ukrainian dish, borscht. So if you come to a person who, like, usually it's a woman who made a nice borscht, you don't tell her, oh, you maybe have a good pot, because it's all about skills. So the same about visualization. Good equipment is important, but it's mostly dependent on skills and love and knowledge, not about only. So I always, when people learn sketchnoting with me, I always say, no matter which instruments you have today, we will draw anyway, even if it is a toilet paper. I don't care. So please just bring some paper and some pen. Good. And when it comes to digital instruments, I use iPad Pro with a pencil and Procreate. I chose them just because a lot of visual practitioners in Facebook community advised it. So I just started to use them and never switched to anything else. And I can recommend, it's very unusual, but I would recommend a online service, Canva, which is for non-designers.
Yes.
Because it's so well developed nowadays that you can really create something kind of visual note style even without drawing, if you don't have anything like tablet or it's very easy nowadays. And for animations, I use Toonly and Doodly, which is kind of the same company who produces them. This is a very basic software. I'm pretty satisfied with what you can create, because I didn't want to invest too much, because I was not sure if I will continue doing this. But people are very satisfied with what I produce, because it's very quick. When you, for example, create an animation with a cool animation studio, it takes months. But I can really create it in a few days, which is amazing nowadays.
That's great. You have all the powers right there in that iPad with some software, which is great.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Well, I love that you have a simple tool set. I believe in being able to go to the drugstore and find your pens and your paper and be able to work, right? So again, it's really about your skills and your love and your soul, and not so much about the tools. But good tools do help, right? Bad tools can definitely distract. So let's shift into tips now. So the way I frame this is, imagine someone's listening who's a visual thinker, whatever that means to them. They feel like they're on a plateau. They're not growing, and they need some encouragement. They need some inspiration. What would be 3 things that you would tell them, either practical or theoretical, to help them think about ways they can move forward?
It's a very nice question, and I think I'm a person who needs a boost now, because I start to work with absolutely new audience, for me, English-speaking audience. So I will give these tips, first of all, to myself, and I hope that they will be useful to someone else. So the first principle I always use when I try to do something new, when I need to learn something, is like fake it till you make it. But I change it a little bit. Like, I do it as a game. You can pretend being a master in this and doing this, or you can think that you are a YouTube vlogger and you are telling to your audience how to do this, or teach like 5-year kid how to do this. So I kind of try to pretend that I already know how to do this, because I find it much easier to advise to someone than to do it myself. So I pretend that I'm just advising. So fake it till you make it is the first principle.
Okay.
Yeah. And the second one is about work-life balance. So I never understood it earlier, but now I realize how it is important to observe beauty and consume quality content. So I really recommend to get inspiration from everywhere, from colleagues, from traveling, to follow people from different industries. For example, I found a lot of inspiration in design industry, psychology, coaching, facilitation. So just continue learning every day and follow good people on Instagram, let's say. This is the second tip. And the third one is a very important gift of allowing yourself to be yourself. What I mean by this, that, for example, I'm a very slow thinker and slow doer. So I give myself permission to do it in my own pace.
Yeah.
And with my own style, even sometimes I think, oh my gosh, it's so ugly. Why people at all should like this or should pay for this even? But I know now that authenticity is the most important value in our days nowadays. So authenticity is very important. So please allow yourself to be yourself and be very kind to yourself. It's very easy to say, but it's very difficult to do. But it's a moment where you are healing your inner child and be just very kind to what you're doing and talk to yourself as a caring parent and support yourself. Like, it's wonderful what you can reach when you're kind to yourself.
Those are three great. I love those tips, all three of those. The last one I especially like, and I often tell people, give yourself grace, because especially new learners who are doing sketchnoting the very first time, like, okay, look, you've never done this before. How can you expect to be amazing? It's going to take time. Let yourself be yourself, right? In that sense. So I love that one especially. Well, Julia, this is like we thought was going to go really fast. So here we are at the end of the show. Can you believe it?
No, this is crazy.
And so now what I want to do is let people know where they can find you, your social media. I'm going to make the bet that your website will be done by the time this episode comes out. So if it is, we'll make sure and put all these in the show notes. So if you want to contact Julia and reach out to her to connect with her, if you've got projects for her, what is the best place to start?
Yeah, any social media like Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, you can find me with the name Julia Knyupa, and hopefully I will have a working website by the time when this episode will come up. And also, if you want to kind of learn something and to hear some inspiration from me, on YouTube there is my TEDx talk in Ukrainian, but with English subtitles. Yeah, it was in 2019, and I talked there about creative confidence. So if you want to learn about this, please find this on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll make sure, and we'll have you, Julia, we'll have you send some links to us, and we'll make sure those get into the podcast show notes so people can click on it and watch that as well. And so do you, last question is, do you know what your website domain name or URL will be for the website yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Because normally I would have, had you give the website, and then people would just type it in and go there. And maybe by the time they hear this, it would be live. But okay. That's okay.
Yeah. I want to thank you for this wonderful chance to talk to you and to all you people who are listening to this now. And I know that it's cheeky, but I want to ask you to continue to support Ukraine, because the war is not over, and we are fighting for the whole democracy and freedom in the world. So please continue to support Ukraine, and I will be absolutely happy to work with people from different countries. Please reach me if you want to support Ukrainian artists.
Yes, I love it. Well, we definitely will. Thank you, Julia, for your time. And for everyone who's listening, that's another episode of the Sketchnote Army podcast that's wrapping up. And until the next episode, this is Mike, and I'll talk to you soon. The Sketchnote Army podcast was created by me, Mike Rohde, and brought to you by Rohdesign Studios. It's produced and edited by Alec Polianis of Amp Creative Studios. The theme music was created by John Schiedermeyer. To support the creation of this show, I invite you to buy one of my books, the Sketchnote Handbook or the Sketchnote Workbook. You can find the books on Amazon or go to peachpit.com and use the code ROHDE40 for 40% off. Please share this podcast with other visual thinking friends and be sure to leave a nice rating on iTunes or your favorite podcast listening app so others can find the show.